Dear respected Thai, dear brothers and sisters and dear family, welcome to Deer Park Monastery. And today is February 19 in the year 2023. And today we have a Dharma talk a la carte. So if you have a few questions, if you have a question, you're more than welcome to come up to the microphone in the back of the hall and you can ask a question. If not, then I'll ask you a question and you can answer it for me. We have our first question here.
Đà Phật. Dạ, thưa cô, con có cái question này. Thì trong gia đình nói là nếu mà có một người thân của mình đi tu á, là mình và tất cả dòng họ sẽ rất là có phước. Nhưng mà nếu mà một người trong những người trong gia đình vẫn không thấy cái phước đó, thì mình làm sao để mà được cái phước? Tự vì những người khác nghĩ là phải có phước mà mình lại không nghĩ là có phước. So, con nghĩ là cô có thể nói nhiều về cái khía cạnh mà phước là gì mà không phước là gì, với lại làm sao để chuyển khi mình cảm thấy mình không có được cái phước đó để được cái phước như những người trong gia đình mà họ nghĩ. Dạ, A Di Đà Phật.
So the first question asked about merit. It is believed in the Vietnamese culture, when you have a family member become a monk or a nun, become a monastic, that the whole family enjoys, shares in that merit. What do you do when somebody in the family does not believe in that kind of merit? That the merit as having a monastic in the family is supposed to have. And she had asked if I can share about how can we help other family members see that merit, that the benefits of having a monastic or a practitioner in the family. So that's the first question. Is there anyone else that has another question in the hall? Yes, please come to the microphone.
My question is about thinking, and if the goal of meditation practice or a way to measure if you're present, if the goal is to stop thinking, or if the goal is to eliminate certain emotions, and to have that be a new baseline.
Thank you. I think we all have that. Are there any other questions in the hall?
Hi, good morning to everyone.
Morning.
Maybe my question is a dumb question, but I wanted to know how I know I'm in meditation.
How am I?
How I know when I'm in meditation. Because everybody say, oh, let's go meditation. But I try, I don't think so I'm in meditation. How I know?
How do you know?
Meditation.
How do you know you're doing meditation?
Exactly.
I don't know either.
well. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a wonderful question. Maybe we can find out the answer together. Yes.
Hello, dear Sangha, dear Thai. Thank you. I'd like to ask, what can I do to remove the expectation to have something be returned to me if I think I'm acting from a place of kindness and love and understanding, and the person doesn't return that, even when you've tried many, many times? How can I remove what I want in return, but still be loving?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's the curveball.
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, my question is, how can we continue the Buddha's teachings into the future, to transmit the teachings to the next generations? We can save books very easily, but I mean the real energy of the practice.
Thank you, Sam. And last question.
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, my question is, how do we move forward in this practice when we continually, continually to mess up on a precept? How do we continue when we keep repeating the same pattern and forgive ourselves, even though we know we are responsible?
Okay, thank you. Wonderful question. I would like to invite all of us to listen to a sound of the bell. Just one sound to breathe together. Dear respected Thai, dear brothers and sisters, and dear family, we received lots of wonderful questions from the audience for today's Dharma talk. One of the things that I remember sharing at one time, in the Vietnamese culture, there is the verse that says, Phật trong nhà không linh, and that the Buddha in your own home is not a spiritual Buddha. So regardless that even if you become a saint or the Holy One, your family members will never believe you. They believe the neighbors more than they believe yourself. And the reason why for this is because they know our habits. We know our own habits. And sometimes we trick ourselves that we have changed and we have transformed. But the most important thing when we come to the practice is not about practicing for them to believe us. It's practicing for us to believe ourselves. Because we're not doing something for somebody else's approval. Whether, yes, I'm a practitioner, yes, I'm a meditator. But what does it mean in Vietnamese term and Vietnamese culture, the word merit? We often think, as a Vietnamese person myself, that merit is almost like an investment, that you have a bank account and all good deeds, things that you do, wholesome actions that you do, you get this invisible currency and you can put it into your bank account and then you can use that later on to pay off things that you do bad, like pay off your bills. But for me, that's not what merit is. If we look at it culturally or by language, the word phước, that's what we pronounce as in the northern Vietnam as phước. But in southern Vietnamese, it's called phúc. Phúc, it can also mean happiness. So it's not necessarily a bank of invisible currency that you can use later on to pay off all your bad deeds, but it's actually the happiness that you create for yourself and that others share. So it's not something that you save for later, it's that you spend again and again and again. So the word merit, or the word phu, or the word phúc, is, for me, in modern terminology, I would translate that as happiness. And if there is a practitioner, or a monk or a nun in your own family, it could be great happiness or it could be a great disaster. Yeah. I know sometimes as monastics we have expectations on our parents. Because you are the mother or the father of a nun, you should be a vegetarian, you should be a vegan, and then you start to impose yourself and your lifestyle onto your own family without listening deeply, without understanding. And the presence of a monk or nun can be also very suffering too. So as my practice, it is not to impose my own views of what it is to be a monastic in a family, but what I can offer to create happiness in my family. And even if it means I need to let go of my views of what should, what is, and what shouldn't be. And I think that is the most important thing. It is not my responsibility for the happiness of others. I am responsible for my own happiness. And if I have happiness for myself, others will share in that. Others will share in that. So maybe right now at this moment, that individual in the family does not believe that there's merit. There's no merit. There's no happiness. Maybe the only thing that practitioner needs to do is just to listen to that person, to listen and to understand what is his or her own suffering. And there's no need to have to say, you have to understand that I am a nun in this family and you should be happy because you have a nun in your family. I don't know, talk about being humble, you know. It's a little bit more arrogance if you say. Actually, my sister, I have 4 siblings. We are 4. I'm number 3. And 3/4 of us became monastics. But I don't even know if that's the greatest happiness because we still fight each other all the time, you know. We argue with each other all the time. And the one thing is that my one sister, who has a family and, you know, lives a lay life, she has friends that come to the monastery and they're in this hall. Some of them are in this hall now, or some of them have heard me give Dharma talks, and they go and tell her that, oh, your sister gives a wonderful Dharma talk. She's so fun. And the next thing you know, I come home and she said, how come you never teach me? And I'm like, you never listen. Everything I say, you argue with me, you know? And that's the nature of the relationship. It's just siblings, we don't bring happiness to one another. And that's the joy of it. And that's the joy of it. So but there's this acceptance of that. She doesn't say it, but she takes a little bit of pride. Every time she hears her friends say, oh, your sister is great, you know, she said, yeah, that's my sister. But she will never listen to my Dharma talk. And I don't want to call her out on this because her friends are here too. And it's okay. It's not that I have to teach everyone. It's not I have to make everyone believe. But as long as I am truly happy with myself, and if I can continue to transform and continue to embrace that person with my tenderness, with my compassion, with my understanding, one day, when you least expect it, they will come around. So if we try to tell them, try to reason, it won't work, because then they will only think we are imposing our views. So the most important thing is to create happiness for yourself, not the idea of an invisible currency of merit, that you do all these good things and you have, like, I don't know, do they do it by weight or they do it by money? I don't know how it is, the concept of that. And then you have one bad thing that you did and you cash out on that. It doesn't work that way in terms of merit. Because right now it's that happiness that you create for yourself and others. And there's this song that I learned from one of my elder sisters a long time ago. And it says, love is something, if you give it away, you end up having more. So in this case, if you have happiness and you give away your happiness, you share your happiness, and it comes back in full circle for yourself. And that can only happen when you have the ability to stop and look deeply. The meditative practice, what is it? I don't know. I've been practicing, I just celebrated my 25th anniversary of ordaining as a nun. And yeah, I look like I'm 25, right? And I'm telling you, it works. I didn't know, but it works. If you think I'm 25, yeah, I came out and I was already a nun. And I didn't know I was meditating at all. Like the first thing that I actually did in my training as a monastic was to learn how to sit in such a way that I can fall asleep and not move. And I mastered that in 25 years. So you can see me doing sitting meditation, and I'm completely deep, not in samadhi, not in concentration, but I'm in deep sleep. And that's it. That's just the sense of being calm and phasing into that and not allowing all of these strong emotions to arise. And so meditation is not a place where you have to go to into the future to find out this is what meditation is. It's actually where you are in your own body and what you're doing and being aware of what is happening inside of you. Whether it's in the position of sitting, or whether it is walking, whether it is breathing, or whether it's eating, that is meditation. And that to determine how deep in meditation you are would determine how present you are. And one of the exercises, if we all look back in the hall, there's a picture of the stained glass, and the little boy there is Rahula. And Rahula is famously known as Prince Siddhartha's son. And I don't want to say the Buddha's son, because after the Buddha became a monk, he did not have any other children. He didn't have this child after he became a monk. So this is Prince Siddhartha's son, which later then became, Siddhartha then became the Buddha. But this picture is a reunion of when the Buddha had reached enlightenment and he visited his father and his son. The story is told is that when the Buddha came, Rahula had no idea who that person was. And so Princess Yasodhara, his wife at that time, told the son, "That is your father." And he had met him for the first time. And Yasodhara told him, "You should go and receive your inheritance." And when we think of inheritance, we think of money and jewels because he's the prince. He has money. Well, he gave everything away. And so Rahula came out to request for his inheritance. And the Buddha told him, "If you want to receive your inheritance, you should become a monk and I will give it to you." And that's what I did. I wanted, where's my riches? I'm waiting for treasures. And that's why I became a monk too, or I became a nun. So Rahula eventually did become a monk. And he became one of the first baby monks. He ordained at a very young age. And there were a lot of baby monks also at that time, very young baby monks. And Rahula was almost like I don't want to call it ringleader, or the gang leader, or the club leader of the baby ones, because they're all young, and they all have the same problems of they cannot wake up early, they could not eat just one meal a day, and so then they always had these groups together where they had Dharma discussion. And one time, there was a Dharma discussion, and one of the monks says, and they shared the practice of what they were doing here. And one of the monks says, "You know what I'm practicing now? I'm practicing catching crickets." And they're like, "Why are you catching crickets?" And he says, yes, I'm catching crickets. And so then, they live in the woods, so there's a lot of little holes around where they can catch crickets. So then one time they said, "Why don't we all sit around?" So they all gathered around the circle and they covered up the holes that they see in the ground, covered it with their hands. And then all the other monks that were there, baby monks were there, started patting out. So then the crickets from one of the holes that was not covered started to come out and jump up and jump away. And then the monk said, "This is how I catch crickets." So I covered everything up, and then I just watch what comes up. And so in that terms, we believe that they're little kids catching crickets in the forest, little monks. But in fact, it's not. That's just a metaphor that they have used. In terms of catching crickets, is that I'm going to cover everything that goes into my eyes and ears and nose and mouth and body and just tap on to see what arises in my mind. The idea is sometimes when we see the crickets, what arises, we catch on to it and we keep it. But the monks never caught it. They just watch it come up and watch it go away. So we don't have to grasp on to things that arise in us. We can close our ears, close our eyes, because things that come in and things that go out, things that we say, things that we receive, all of that waters a lot of different things. And so then, and there's so many inputs and so much output happening all simultaneously at the same time. And how can we watch what is happening? And so the monks said, you just cover your ears and eyes and everything and just watch one thing. What is arising in our mind? And all that pitter-patter, the pounding, are the conditions that all these, the sadness, the sorrow, this happiness and this joy, being aware of what waters that cricket of happiness and let it come up to the surface. And you can watch that cricket just hop away. But at the same time, being aware of what waters sadness and watching that cricket of sadness come up to the surface. And the first thing, sometimes our habit is to shoo it away or catch it and think about it and dissect it and decipher it and everything else. But in fact, you can just allow it to, because we are aware of what waters those kinds of seeds, what feeds that cricket, and it comes up to the surface, and we can just simply let it bounce away, hop away. And so dealing with our emotions and with our thoughts is the same way as the young monks who had learned how to catch crickets or watch out for crickets. And so the practice of meditation is just that, just being aware of what comes in and what goes out, what is being fed inside, but also just in deep sleep, deep relaxation. Because there's a lot of things that we can be aware of what feeds our inside. When we see things or we hear things, and when we smell things or we taste things, and when we give out energy-wise, when we say something. And they can be in the light of love, happiness, or joy, but it can also be in the light of sorrow and despair. And meditation is simply just to be aware of that, not to control it, not to fix it, but to continue to be present for it, always present for it. Because one of the things is that we're always there and ready when there's a party, when there's something happy and joyful going on, you're there. But when there's something that is not as happy, then we always find our excuse to run away from it. We always find an excuse. Oh, I'm too busy. Oh, I've got this, I've got that. And we don't take that opportunity to look inside because we are afraid. Not because we're afraid of the sorrow or the sadness. We're afraid of something else that might come out of that hole. And next thing you have a whole colony of crickets coming out, and just everywhere. And that's why we'd rather not look at that. And so the encouragement of the meditation practice in a controlled space where you can invite these crickets to come up, invite your emotions to come up, and look at it and smile at it and say hello. Even if it's thinking. These past few days, I have been, I don't want to say thinking a lot, but it's been sort of like brewing, just in the background. I'm still fully present when I'm eating and walking and working, but background, almost like background music, is just something brewing there. And it's not really an attention grab where I'm only thinking about that and I become dysfunctional where I can't do anything else. And one of the thoughts that came up to me was in relationships of when we live with one another, in families or in workplace, it's not easy, but it's not too hard. When we see, first of all, I'm going to say, when we see ourselves and we have a difficulty, and when we see ourselves as a problem, and we're trying to find a solution for our problem because we need to be fixed. But in fact, we are human beings. We're not a math problem where any formula can fix, can change. We cannot be engineered. We have no problems. It's because we think we're comparing ourselves to others. The only thing that we need is more compassion and love so that we can organically transform and heal for myself. And it's not that I'm this, therefore I need this in order to remedy and to fix that. That issue is not an issue. It's a matter of having enough love for myself and to be able to listen to myself. Whether that issue is overthinking is not a problem to solve. Overthinking is basically something to embrace with love and kindness, with compassion, with understanding. Suffering is not a problem for me to solve. Hatred is not a problem for me to solve. But it's to listen deeply to see where they are coming from, where my hurt is, where my sorrow lies. And with compassion and understanding, with the willingness to listen deeply to that person and not to place a solution for him or for her, that this is how to solve your problem. I actually don't like to use that term because we are an organism, not an organization. As human beings, that's what we are. Because we cannot have one fixed formula for every single problem, like the ultimate pi, 3.4, whatever the rest of the number is. It's not that, because we are an organism. Organically, our emotions are also organic. Our body is organic. So we cannot use something that is fixated to fix. So we are not a problem. We just need conditions, favorable conditions for us to transform and to heal. In the light of how do we go forward? How do we go forward in our own practice when we feel that we're still in the same place? We still have the same problems. We still have the same kind of actions. What I think you've actually moved forward. Even though every single time you meet that same situation, you make the same choices again. And I think at one point, somewhere I learned this, is that you make the same choices again because you haven't suffered enough. I hope I don't offend anybody. And it's not to say that you have to suffer, like absolutely suffer and create everyone around you to suffer, make everyone around you suffer. But it's the awareness that the awareness of that kind of suffering is not yet ripened. But the thing is that because every single time you come across it again, you are aware of it. And then you make the wrong choices afterwards. Or you make the awareness after the choice has been made. But that's already moving forward. Because if you make these choices and then you forget all about them and then you never become aware of that, that's sort of being stagnant and being left behind. But even if you make the awareness after the choice has been done, hopefully it'll come closer. The awareness will come closer before you make this choice. So just stopping a little bit. I'm sorry, the microphone is sort of like messing. I'm having a bad hair day right now. I can feel my headscarf just like poofing out. This microphone doesn't actually help me much. But anyways, so you can become aware of the suffering created by such and such an act before. But right now, your awareness comes after. So if you slow down a moment, there's no rush into making any decision. You have full authority on when to decide. When to decide. But you might want to ask yourself, why are you irrationally making such decisions or such choices? Is there a space that needs to be filled inside of you? Whether that is, I don't think anybody here is breaking the first mindfulness training of killing another person, or exploitation, or even the third mindfulness trainings of sexual misconduct. I'm going to use that as an example. We make certain choices when we enter into a relationship, and then we create suffering for ourselves afterwards, knowing whatever it is. And then it becomes this whole cycle over and over and over again. So we might want to look deeply inside of what are we trying to fulfill. Because one of the sentences that really stands out for me in the third mindfulness training is to know that sexual activity motivated by desire is not love. And that line in itself, that awareness of these desires is not love. But what kind of love are we looking for? That we want to believe we have. Therefore, we engage in sexual misconduct temporarily for now. We trick ourselves into believing that this is actually love. Before or afterwards, we suffer deeply from it, or we made other people suffer. So it's not about moving forward. It's actually about taking a step back and looking deeply inside of ourselves to see what is it that we truly want. Are we looking for a superficial kind of love that fills us in for that moment? Are we looking for acceptance, an embrace, even an embrace? Just someone whom we think can understand us? Someone where we can be vulnerable to? And this is something that we can all look deeply into. And I have, do we want to be able to be vulnerable? And to believe that someone will be able to hold our vulnerability and to share that empathy, that sympathy. And therefore, we keep on looking for things on the outside for that, because we have left our home. We have left our home. Can we be that person who understands ourselves? Can we offer that embrace? Can we be the warmth? And it's probably the safest place to be, to listen to yourself, to offer that warmth and love and compassion, and the least damaging. And sometimes we seek others, or we seek help or refuge on the outside is because we're just so tired. We're exhausted. We're exhausted from ourselves. We don't want to look deeply. So we have to Marie Kondo ourselves. I think even Marie Kondo now has children and is done with all this cleaning up. And we can reach that point also when we are just so exhausted. The next place that I would go to is to the monastery. Not to become monastics, but to take refuge in a Sangha. To take refuge in a Sangha. A different kind of love that we can have. That we can continue to be vulnerable. We have someone there, and yet we have the energy of the practice around us to remind us, okay, this is what we need to do, to watering that seed, to creating the conditions for our organic garden to heal and to transform. And not to put like this GMO stuff, everything that's like all like man-made kind of stuff into our garden to heal. And so how do we move forward? Sometimes we need to go backwards, to slow down, to stop. But already in that, stopping and slowing down is going forward. Because then you make happier choices for yourself. You give yourself the opportunity to make happier choices rather than just making choices on impulse. We have a lot of meetings in the community, and one of the insights that I've had is that any decision that we make based on an emotion is an unstable decision. It doesn't work. Because then why? Our emotions change. Therefore, the decision at that time, based on that kind of emotion, may seem relevant. But then 2 days later, our emotions change and they become irrelevant. So any decision based on an emotion is an unstable decision. It's an unstable choice. So why do we do that for ourselves? So if we have these strong emotions, okay, bring it on. I'm gonna calm you down and then I'll make a decision later. Because I want to see clearly. The song that we sang before walking meditation, I am water, reflecting what is real, what is true. Water can only reflect in depths. You can see the bottom of the lake or the perfect reflection of the moon when the surface is completely calm. So that's what it is. That's how we should practice. And all of this is the spirit in which we continue the teachings of the Buddha. It's not about a certain kind of energy. As long as healing and transformation happens, then that is the essence of the Buddha's teaching that is being continued. And not one person can do that. The whole Sangha, the whole entire community together can do that. Hết giờ chưa? Hết giờ chưa? I think I'm supposed to end now, I think. But one of this morning I had a song come to me, and it's written by one of our dear friends, Washington. And he's a wonderful lay friend. He's from Australia. And he used to come here every year and stayed with us for a while, 6 months, and the teenagers loved him. And he has a song, which I only know the chorus, because that's the only part where we all sang together, and he sang the verses. But this song is titled "Can't Stop Love." And I would like to offer this chorus part for you, because I think that's what we all need at this moment. Not because February is Valentine's Day. No. You don't need any of that. But because we all need love. And in the light of the violence that has been happening in the United States, the violence in Europe, the war, things that are happening there, and just this thirst for understanding and for love. And sometimes we feel that we can't do anything. We feel that we feel hopeless, and we fall into despair. And that's the most dangerous place to be in, when we feel hopeless. But this is a song, and we know ourselves, when we were teenagers, we didn't really like to sing, But this is the one song that I saw when Washantara was still with us. He passed away a few years ago. That really brought all the teenagers together and really allowed them to touch that place where we have forgotten. Because right now, in all of the things that we're looking at individually, collectively as a society, collectively as a country, and globally as a whole earth, citizens of the earth, we're still looking for a solution to a problem. And that solution is always outside of us, not inside of us. And so this song is called Can't Stop Love. And I will like to just offer the chorus because that's the only part that I know. And it's probably the best part. But I'll sing it twice for all of you before I end the Dharma talk today. Open your heart. Let your love flow free out over the ocean or across the street. Let it flow like a river. Let it fly like a dove until you remember you can't stop love. Once you get it started, watch what it does. It'll come full circle. You can't stop love. Open your heart. Let your love flow free out over the ocean or across the street. Let it flow like a river. Let it fly like a dove until you remember you can't stop love. Once you get it started, watch what it does. It'll go full circle. You can't stop love. Thank you.